Good day, everybody. Happy Thursday. Lovely day outside. It's almost May. Hard to believe that summer's almost here. School's almost over. Um, at OptiMed, we're always looking to provide, education, information, and more importantly, solutions to the families out there and to the students we look to work with. So, one of the issues that a lot of families are dealing with right now, and I think it's on a lot of people's minds, is the landscape that we're dealing with in terms of mental health, in terms of increased gun violence and that sort of thing. And I think a lot of parents are looking for options, and we're really lucky to have with us today Bill Sharp, who is now the head of school at Richmond Christian School, because I think our small private K-12 schools provide an option for parents to look at if they're concerned about their child's safety, the child's education, the moral center that perhaps is not part of what they may get nurtured in a larger school system. So I asked Bill to come on today to talk about Richmond Christian and to share the school with the audience, because I think it's a great place. We are there, and I love the school. I love the staff, and I'm just so happy and that Bill is now running the whole show. That's great. So, Bill, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to be here.
So let's start with a little history. Can you tell us a little bit about Richmond Christian School? How long it's been around? Just maybe a couple interesting facts.
Sure. So RCS we're in our 70th year now as a school here in the Richmond area. We actually started in what is now a large private home in downtown Richmond, and probably I think it was the early to mid 80s, moved to our current location here on Belmont Road. The building here was owned by the Gill School, and when that school closed and we saw the opportunity as a school to take over the facilities, we have 33 acres here right in the middle of Chesterfield County. It's beautiful landscapes and neighborhoods all around, and it's just a great place to be, easily accessible from Chippenham and even south from 288 and Interstate 95. So kind of in a nice strategic location. The buildings are, they look kind of your typical, Virginia brick buildings, but almost has a college campus look to it. And but as far as the school itself, we currently have a little over 320 students.
I was going to ask how large you were. Okay, good.
So we do have starting kindergarten all the way through 12th grade and graduation. Our average grades, probably in the secondary level for sure, are between 25 to 30 students. And then in the elementary, they range from 16 to 18 at the lowest end, up to 20 students per classroom. So currently our elementary has 2 sections in every grade, all the way up to 5th grade. And then 6th through 8th grade is middle school. And then 9 through 12 is high school. So my previous role, which I'm still kind of transitioning out of at this point, was overseeing 6th through 12th grade. And we have an elementary principal that will handle the kindergarten through 5th grade. So, we have of course, as a Christian school, our big focus is what we call the biblical integration worldview. So in every subject, students will hear about Christ. Students will hear about the Bible. They'll see scriptures in their textbooks, and a lot of our Christian textbook publishers will deliberately put that in. So, we see that's probably the biggest difference that we see from even other private schools that are in the area. And, we also we recognize that parents are the primary educator that God has set up for their children. And our job is to come alongside that and to help nurture that and help develop that and to support them in that role.
So it's more of a partnership.
Yes, sir. Very much. In fact, we use the word partnership and have developed a document that we call a partnership covenant, which, covenant's it's a strong word. It's a biblical word. And it's a partnership that really is based on that foundation with God at the center. And, we see sort of a set of kind of expectations for parents on the one side, and then for the school on the other side, but they're not two independent lists. The two come together and they merge nicely together, where we work in partnership with our parents, and in providing the what we call the education of hearts and minds for Christ.
Sure. So it's about helping young people not only become educated, but to develop as good stewards of their community,
Yes,
of the world as a whole, and whether that's in ministry or that's just in their daily lives. I think those lessons that the Bible can teach, whether you're Christian or not, there's lessons there for anyone.
For sure.
And this sort of leads me to a question that's kind of been I've been wanting to ask, and that is if there's a family that wants their child to be enrolled there, do they necessarily have to be Christian?
That's a great question, and we kind of, that sort of comes out in the conversation when we talk about church involvement and things. The short answer is no. You don't have to be a Christian to attend Richmond Christian School. We, like I said, all of our curriculum from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade is all biblically based. So that means whether you're a Christian or not, whether you go to church once a week, or to coin a phrase that a parent in a previous interview said, if you're one of those Creasters, the Christmas, Easter Christians, or whatever, wherever you are with your faith, our goal is, like I said, educating hearts and minds for Christ, which means that no matter where you start, you have to come in with the expectation that you're going to have the Bible integrated into your classrooms in every subject. You're going to have scriptures that you have to memorize, especially at the elementary level. You're going to have chapel once a week, where we focus on how we bring more of God into our lives and in the school and outside of the school. Right. So those are opportunities that students will have, and then to be able to make those connections back home, to hopefully bring the conversation home about God and all that they see him doing in their lives and in the lives of the school.
Right. So I know it seems like it's probably a bigger question on the part of the family rather than the school.
Right.
Because is the student willing to respect the way you deliver education and that exposure to Christianity and the Bible? Are they able to deal with that? And so I think it's a bigger question for the family and the student than it is for the school, right?
Sure.
So what is give me some idea of the results of kids coming through school? Let's talk about because we're college prep there, right? We do a great job educationally and all that. So what are the results of kids coming through your program and going on to bigger and better things?
We have at least, I would say, 90% or more of our students, probably closer to 95%, that will attend some form of post-secondary education. So it might be trade school. It might be going into a 2-year program. Most of our students go right into 4-year programs. And we have a number that will also go into the military in various forms. We've had a couple of our recent graduates, one who was accepted at VMI, and so he's going through that program. We've had a couple of students that came out of here and went directly into the Army or into the Navy. So, so we see that we have those lots of different options for kids outside of just going to college. Some just go right into the workforce, and but like I said, about between 90 and 95% annually will attend some form of post-secondary education.
Yeah. So I want to just touch a little bit on our partnership, because I think one of the important things about Richmond Christian is the fact that you recognize the need for something beyond what you were able to deliver in terms of helping kids with that next step. So can you speak to our partnership a little bit?
Sure. We're in year 3 now, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one of the things that we find as a growing school is that you don't always have all of the resources available that larger schools may have at their disposal. And, when we first were approached by you and your program and talking it over with our leadership team, just seeing the value of having that outside connection and that wealth of resources that your program and your years of experience have to bring into for our students, so that starting in 10th grade, they're already walking through the process beyond just doing the scheduling for of classes that we do, but just looking outside and seeing that bigger picture and realizing, wow, there's a lot more to going to college and just filling out some applications. So we honestly have been hugely blessed by you and your program, and having that, like I said, that connection. The assessment that students do is invaluable. And then what I think is probably one of the strengths of our partnership is that personal connection, that it's not just, okay, here's some college resources, and we're going to send you on your way. It's coming back on a regular basis and meeting with our students in small groups and one-on-one sessions, that really helps them to get their specific questions answered. And again, it's goes beyond just the application. It's the application. It's essay writing. It's marketing yourself. It's doing the making sure that the courses that you select are moving you in the direction that you want to go after high school. And then also the partnership with parents, again, which is a big part for us. But when you come in on campus and you're doing evening sessions on FAFSA and what does it take to market your child to college, things like that. We've had a lot of real positive feedback from parents about those sessions and how it's really opened their eyes to a lot of things that they knew they needed to know, but didn't really know where to get it. And then, they come here and they feel better equipped to send their child out into, that post-secondary education.
Yeah. So for other small schools that might be looking at us, it's fairly efficient for the school, is it not?
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I mean, the value you get in terms of the preparation for students and getting their questions answered and getting that increase in their comfort level in, going beyond high school. Because as you mentioned earlier, we're in a world that's just upside down right now. And, everything from suicide to anxiety, and they are on the rise, even all the way down into lower elementary school. And it's heartbreaking. But to know that we have a resource like this that can help to ease some of those concerns and help to address some of those anxieties and help them to feel more prepared about going forward is you can't put a price tag on that.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Bill. Let's give parents some idea of what they should be considering or thinking about if they wanted to look at RCS as an option. I mean, what should they be considering?
Well, again, understanding that we are a college prep school. One of the things that has just come out in the midst of our accreditation visit that we're actually right in the midst of right now, which is kind of interesting, where we have a team of educators that come in, they evaluate our program, they evaluate, just kind of where we are as a school, what are the strengths that we have, what are areas to focus on in the future. And one thing that came out of the parent meeting that they just had yesterday morning, actually, was that a couple of our parents who are public school educators had decided to put their children here. At first, coming from the public school gifted programs that they were in, they were a little hesitant, wondering, okay, it's a private school, it's a smaller school, how is it going to match up? And they have said that they have been extremely pleased with the fact that their children have not missed a beat academically, that they find that the rigor that they get here and the exposure to the courses and things that we offer are on par with what they were getting in the gifted program. So they don't feel that they've lost anything in terms of educational quality, so that I think that's important for families to realize that, even though we are a smaller school, we offer AP classes in calculus and chemistry and English, and looking to expand that and looking at possibly like AP art and things like that for the future. But we also have a huge partnership with Liberty University that has close to 200 dual enrollment courses that our students have access to. So So coming here, they're not only are they going to get that quality education that they would get, on par with any school around, as far as I'm concerned, but they're also going to get smaller class sizes. So, they're not going to be in a classroom with 30 other kids. It's just not the way we roll. They'll have a lot of the high school classes are probably closer to 12 to 15 students in a class. We have all of our teachers they're certified educators. We're not just bringing people, taught Sunday school, let's say, off the street. I mean, our teachers are professionals, and our kids are going to get the quality education. They're going to get the Christ-centered education, but they're also going to get teachers that love them and care for them and are able to really help to walk them through some of the needs that they have.
That's great.
We've had kids that came in from the public school that were amazed when they found out, hey, my teachers are praying for me. What, and so that's been a huge benefit for a lot of students.
That sort of brought me to my next question. A student comes to Richmond Christian armed with an IEP for some learning disability or challenge. Are you equipped to deal with that situation?
To a certain degree. At this point, we don't have any of the, any exceptional ed teachers on staff. We have teachers that have been in the public schools, so they understand how those work. They understand basic accommodations, things you can do, preferential seating and extended time. And, what we do is typically when an interview or when a family applies and we get their application packet, we'll sit down as a leadership team. We'll go over, if there is an IEP in there, we'll look at what are their needs. If their needs require additional staff support, then we're upfront with families and we just let them know at this point, we just don't have that for you, but a lot of it's more of, like I said, the basic classroom kind of day-to-day operational things that we can accommodate for. And, we find that we have a number of students that we will actually take the IEP, because as a private school, we're not held to the letter of the law, so to speak, in the IEP, but we do our best to meet those accommodations by developing what we call a student support plan. And so, we go through and we look at what are the accommodations that are recommended. If it's things that we know we can do in the classroom, then we talk that over with the parents. We'll develop that plan for them, kind of talk it over with them, and making sure that they feel comfortable with those accommodations. And then we share that out with teachers, and it's treated confidentially, just like any other IEP is. And the teachers understand, that this is part of that student's program, and they're good with that, and they're supportive of that, and they do really well with that.
I think a lot of the circumstances that are addressed in an IEP are really dealt with effectively simply through the caring and the awareness that's going on, and a lot of that's easier to deliver in smaller classrooms.
Correct.
And aside from the formality of it, just the care and love that the kids get there, I think, compensates for a lot of things.
Right.
But anyway, so if a family is interested in talking with RCS, with you, about bringing their child there, do you still have room?
Absolutely. In fact, we have an open house coming up in May. That'll be coming up I believe it's May 12th. And we have it posted on our Facebook page. And we also have, information that's out in the community, so that, if somebody is interested in hearing more about the school, they can come to the open house, of course. We do an appointment only format. So they make an appointment, they get a 30-minute time window with a team of teachers that sits down with them, answers all their questions, tells them about the great things about the school. They get a tour of the facility. Another big benefit that we've been able to offer to families, at least probably now for the next few weeks, is if they're interested in shadowing, we have what we call Warrior for a Day. So the student can come on campus. We pair them up with, someone in the same gender who's in the same grade, and they just shadow them for the day. We provide lunch. They can come. They hang out with the students. And recently we had two that I can think of that at first were very reluctant in coming because mom or dad really wanted them here. But by the end of the day, after shadowing, they were hugging on their classmates and I see you next year. And they were really excited about that. So that would be another way. But of course, you can always go to richmondchristian.com, go to our website. There's a virtual tour on there that you can take. You can read up information about the school, about the history of the school, the staffing, the personnel, the athletics and academic programs. And if the phone number is there that you can call and talk with our office staff, who are phenomenal, to answer any questions that they may have as well.
Great. And if that doesn't work, you can always get to Richmond Christian School through our website, because there's a link on our website, optomedcenter.com. Notice how I worked that in?
That's perfect. Well done.
Anyway, so Bill, thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for all the information. You have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the time.